Bella. Pacing around the room, I waited for Kai to return. My fingers quivered as Mabel's presence outweighed everything else. I couldn't let her take everything that I had worked out to be. Bella, he called out grimly, stepping into the room. We'll visit Ollie today at the hospital. I nodded, grateful for the excuse to leave the suffocating tension in the room. The drive to the hospital was quiet, save for the occasional sound of tires splashing through puddles. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past. Kai drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. You're thinking about Mabel again, he said suddenly, his voice low. I glanced at him, startled. He didn't look away from the road, but the way his fingers tightened on the wheel told me he was waiting for an answer. I can't ignore it, I admitted. Every time we're together, it feels like she's hiding something. And when she comes back, I hesitated. There's always that faint energy. It's subtle, but it's there. Kai didn't respond immediately. He let the silence stretch, a habit of his when he was piecing things together. You think our guess about her using witchcraft is correct, he said finally, more a statement than a question. I nodded, though I knew he couldn't see me. I'm almost certain. Kai exhaled sharply, his fingers drumming against the wheel. We'll handle Mabel, he said, his tone firm. Right now, let's focus on Ollie. The hospital smelled sterile, a sharp mix of disinfectant and faintly stale air. The walls were painted a muted green, the kind that was supposed to be calming, but only made the place feel colder. Ollie was waiting for us in one of the private rooms, sitting stiffly on the edge of the bed. His eyes lit up when he saw us, but there was a hesitation in his movements, like he was unsure how to act. Hey, Ollie, I said, forcing a smile as I approached him. How are you feeling? He tilted his head, his expression blank for a moment before he gave a small shrug. I glanced at Kai, who stood by the door with his arms crossed, watching Ollie like a hawk. Let's get started, Kai said, nodding toward the machine beside the bed. The scan was quick, the soft hum of the equipment filling the room. I stood by Ollie's side, my hand resting lightly on his shoulder. He didn't flinch, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. When the scan was over, the results were displayed on a screen. I leaned closer, my brow furrowing as I studied the readings. There it was again, that faint, peculiar, magical energy. It clung to Ollie like a shadow, intangible yet unmistakable. The technology we relied on could identify it, but its nature remained maddeningly elusive. What do you think? Kai asked, his voice low. I shook my head. It's magic, but I can't tell what kind. It's complex, layered. Kai's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the screen. Ollie, I said gently, crouching so I was at eye level with him. Can you tell me anything? Do you remember anything unusual happening before this started? Ollie blinked at me, his brow furrowing in concentration. He reached for a notepad on the bedside table and began to write. I watched as he carefully formed each letter, his tongue poking out slightly in concentration. When he handed me the note, my heart sank. The words were nearly illegible, riddled with errors. Some letters were missing, while others seemed to appear out of nowhere, jumbled and chaotic. Thank you, Ollie, I said softly, squeezing his hand. He looked at me with wide, pleading eyes, and something inside me twisted. I wanted to help him, to fix whatever this was, but I felt like I was grasping at smoke. Later that evening, I sat at my desk, the notepad open in front of me. The rain had started again, tapping softly against the window. I stared at Ollie's writing, my finger tracing the uneven lines of his letters. The message looked like nonsense at first glance, misspelled words, stray letters scattered across the page. But something about it gnawed at me, like a whisper I couldn't quite make out. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes and letting the memory of his handwriting burn into my mind. Think, Bella, I urged myself. There's something here, something you're missing. A voice echoed faintly in my head, a memory from years ago. Magic isn't always what it seems. Sometimes the answer hides in plain sight. Opening my eyes, I sat up straighter. I grabbed a fresh sheet of paper and began copying Ollie's words, letter by letter, arranging them into neat lines. Then I focused on the letters that seemed out of place, the extras that didn't belong. It was painstaking work. I had to fight through the frustration of chasing a pattern that might not even exist. But slowly, a message began to emerge. With each letter I crossed out or moved aside, a phrase started to take shape. HELP-ME. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the page. It was so simple, yet so haunting. I went back to the jumbled letters, searching for more. Ollie's message wasn't finished. I could feel it, a faint tug in the pit of my stomach. I repeated the process, combing through the seemingly random jumble, until a second phrase emerged. CURSED. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. My fingers tightened around the pen as I stared at it. Ollie wasn't just struggling to communicate. He was trying to tell us something no amount of magic or technology could make clear. By the time Kai came into the room, the rain had turned into a full-fledged storm, thunder rumbling in the distance. I didn't even hear him at first, too focused on the notes spread across the desk. "Bella?" I jumped slightly, turning to see him standing in the doorway. He looked tired, his shoulders heavy with whatever weight he'd been carrying all day. "Is something wrong?" he asked, his voice low as he stepped inside. "Not wrong," I said, my words coming out breathless, "but I think I've figured out what's happening to Ollie." That caught his attention. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping beside me and leaning over to look at the scattered papers. I pointed to the notes I'd deciphered, my fingers trembling slightly. These weren't just mistakes. He was leaving us a message, Kai. Look. He studied the papers, his eyes narrowing as he took it in. "Help me. Cursed," he murmured, repeating the words. I nodded, my pulse racing. "I think he's been cursed, and whatever magic did this to him won't let him explain it outright. This," I gestured to the notes, "this was the only way he could tell us." Kai straightened, his expression hardening. "A curse," he said, his voice sharp. "Do you have any idea who—" "Mabel," I said, cutting him off. The name fell from my lips with a certainty that made my chest tighten. "It has to be. I don't know why or how, but it fits, Kai. The witchcraft, the secrecy, the way she avoids me when she comes back. It's all connected. She used witchcraft to fake her death, so why wouldn't she use it again?" His silence spoke volumes. He didn't disagree. The storm raged outside, but inside, the room was quiet, save for the sound of my breathing. Kai paced near the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "What's the next step?" I asked, breaking the silence. "We need proof," he said, his tone measured but firm. "If Mabel's behind this, confronting her without evidence would be dangerous, for us and for Ollie." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. He was right. As much as I wanted to charge headfirst into whatever this was, we couldn't risk making a mistake. "What about Ollie?" I asked. "If the curse is tied to her, does that mean—" He turned to face me, his eyes dark with determination. "If she's the one who cursed him, then the curse will break when she's gone." The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. I nodded, though the thought of what gone might mean sent a shiver down my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as the storm's fury subsided. The rain had turned to a gentle drizzle, and the faint sound of water dripping from the eaves filled the silence. Ollie's plea echoed in my mind, his small, frightened eyes looking up at me. Help me. I had to help him. No matter what it took, no matter what dangers lay ahead, I couldn't let him suffer in silence any longer. As I drifted into a restless sleep, a single thought burned in my mind. Mabel's secrets would come to light, one way or another. Author's note: as this is a face-off between both Bella and Mabel, there would be a mix of POVs to the end, so sorry for the stress. Thanks for reading. Bella. The dining hall was alive with the hum of morning activity as I sat reviewing the day's pack schedule. The rhythmic clinking of dishes and the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee were oddly soothing. But the peace was short-lived. Mabel's sharp laughter rang out as she entered the room, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her arrival felt like a storm cloud darkening the space, and I braced myself. She sauntered in with her usual air of entitlement, her piercing gaze scanning the room until it landed on me. "Good morning, Bella," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. I nodded politely. "Good morning, Mabel." Her lips curved into a smirk as she approached my table, a cup of tea balanced precariously in her hand. "I heard you're handling pack affairs today. Must be quite the challenge for someone like you." I ignored the jab, focusing instead on the document spread before me. But as she leaned closer, I caught the faint scent of witchcraft clinging to her, a reminder of her ulterior motives. Just as I was about to respond, Mabel pretended to stumble, her teacup tilting dangerously. The liquid splashed onto the table and floor, narrowly missing my papers. She straightened, her expression feigning horror. "Oh no, how clumsy of me! Bella, dear, why don't you clean this up?" I looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes sparkled with malice, daring me to react. Did she think me so fickle that I would call for her mundane tricks? I almost scoffed at the attempt. Before I could say anything, one of the younger pack members, an Omega named Eliza, rushed forward with a cloth. "I'll take care of it, Luna," she said softly to me, already kneeling to wipe the spill. "Luna," Mabel repeated, her voice cold and mocking. "How touching." Her attempt to humiliate me had backfired, and her smile faltered. She glared at Eliza, who avoided her gaze, focusing instead on the task at hand. "Eliza," Mabel snapped, her voice sharp. "Did I ask for your help?" Eliza froze, looking uncertain. "That's enough, Mabel," I said calmly. "The spill is taken care of. Let it go." If she didn't, her facade would be ruined. The more her plans failed, the more it made her desperate, and desperate people would always make mistakes, and that's where we would catch her. Made her mistakes out of carelessness because she was so eager to win. Mabel's jaw tightened, but she said nothing, storming off with a flick of her hair. Mabel. The audacity of that girl. I clenched my fists as I stormed down the corridor, my heels striking the floor with every step. Did she dare to undermine me in front of the pack? My mood darkened further when I entered the lounge, where a group of pack members sat chatting. Bella's name came up more than once, accompanied by praise that made my blood boil. "She has no idea what she's doing," I muttered under my breath, yet they worship her like she's their savior. I was the one who deserved to be called Luna, not the crass. I huffed at their ignorance. I needed a way to put her in her place, to remind her, and everyone else, that I was not someone to be overlooked. Later that afternoon, I found my opportunity. Bella was walking through the main hall, speaking with Kai about some pack matter. I waited until she was close enough and then carefully tipped the edge of my juice glass, just enough to spill the bright red liquid onto my pristine white shirt. "Bella!" I shrieked, drawing everyone's attention. "Look what you've done!" Bella stopped mid-conversation, her brow furrowing in confusion. "I didn't even touch you," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Don't lie," I snapped, pointing to the stain. "You were careless and knocked it over. Now you'll wash this shirt yourself." Before Bella could respond, Kai stepped forward, his expression dark. "Bella didn't spill anything, Mabel. I was standing right here." His words silenced the room. I felt my cheeks flush, a mix of anger and embarrassment. "But no buts," Kai said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Accusing someone falsely is beneath you." I clenched my teeth, holding back a retort. The eyes of the pack were on me, and the weight of their judgment was suffocating. Kai had humiliated him, and I would do the same. How dare he side with the country wolf, my replacement? "Fine," I spat, tossing my head. "I suppose no one cares about my ruined shirt." With that, I stormed off, leaving the room in awkward silence. The only thing I could think of was the fact that I would get my revenge. They would pay. I would make sure they remember what they had done to me. They didn't know what I could do, what I had done, and what I would do to them. The things I had planned for them? Oh, they would surely wish they weren't born. But how? How would I get my revenge? How would I achieve my goals? Even after I abandoned Kai, he found a way to build his pack from the ashes I had left it in, so what could be the big blow that would end his reign forever? I paced around my room, tapping my foot and chewing my nails as I combed through my thoughts. "Think, Mabel, think. I hummed, fingers jittery. I sat on the bed, sighing. The pack had many businesses and deals. What if I stole the documents of the pack's secrets? If I stole them and the witches got a hold of it, they would surely know what to do with the information. This would aid them. I needed to do this. I would steal all the documents, replace them with fake ones, and hand them over to the witches. For sure, Kai's pack would be destroyed once and for all. My lips curled up sinisterly. "Ready or not, Kai? Here I come, Bella." The tension in the air was palpable as Kai's words hung between us. Mabel's face was a mask of barely concealed fury, and I could see her struggling to maintain her composure. "Fine," she spat, tossing her head. I suppose no one cares about my ruined shirt." With that, she stormed off, leaving the room in awkward silence. Kai turned to me, his gaze softening. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in." He offered a small smile before returning to his duties, and I exhaled, the knot in my chest loosening. But the day wasn't over yet. That evening, Mabel's mood seemed darker than ever. She lingered around the study where I worked, watching me with calculating eyes. I decided to turn the tables. If she wanted to play games, I could play them too. I prepared tea, lacing it with a mild sedative, not enough to harm her, just enough to dull her sharp edges. "Here," I said, setting the cup in front of her. "I thought you might need this." She raised an eyebrow, suspicious but too prideful to refuse. As she sipped, I deliberately presented her with the most tedious and basic tasks, a stack of unimportant documents to review, each one more monotonous than the last. It didn't take long for the sedative to take effect. Her eyelids grew heavy, her movements sluggish. Within minutes, she was slumped in her chair, fast asleep. "Mabel." When I woke, the world felt hazy, and my head pounded with irritation. I blinked, realizing the documents I'd been reviewing were gone, replaced by a neatly arranged stack. Bella stood nearby, her expression calm but smug. "Did you finish everything?" I asked, my voice groggy. "While you were resting," she replied, her tone infuriatingly polite. I gritted my teeth, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Summon someone to paint my nails," I snapped. "Now." An Omega maid arrived moments later, her hands trembling as she opened the nail polish bottle. "Be careful," I warned, narrowing my eyes. "If you smudge even one line." But her hands were unsteady, and the polish smeared slightly outside the edges. My fury ignited. "You're useless," I hissed, shoving her away. "Lock her in the dungeon. Maybe that will teach her some competence." The maid's eyes widened in fear, and she began to sob, pleading for mercy. Before the guards could drag her away, Bella stepped forward, her voice firm. "That's enough, Mabel." "You dare." "I do," she interrupted, her gaze unwavering. "This is my pack, and I won't allow you to abuse its members." The room fell silent as the pack members who had gathered looked between us. "Luna," one of them whispered, the word carrying weight. I felt my heart twist in anger and disbelief as more voices joined in, addressing Bella as Luna. This wasn't just defiance. This was an open declaration of loyalty to her, Bella. As I stood there watching the bewilderment and fury on Mabel's face, I realized something important. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. This was a battle for the heart of the pack, and I intended to win. I would beat her at her own game. "Mabel." "Leave us," Bella commanded, her voice steady. She waved a hand dismissively at the guards and maids in the room. One by one, the guards exchanged looks, hesitating only for a moment before they filed out, their footsteps echoing in the room. The maids followed suit, some glancing nervously at me as they shuffled out of the room. Once the last of them had exited and the door clicked shut behind Bella, sealing off any chance of escape. A chill swept through the room. Her calm demeanor only fueled the fire burning in my chest. I decided to quench that fire and ignore her and went back to the files I was looking through. Maybe she was just trying to mess with me, making me think she had control over the situation. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Soon she and everyone in this pack would be begging for my mercy. I just had to get these documents duplicated. I skimmed through the stack of papers, flipping from one to the next. Something felt off. I glanced back at them and realized, wait a minute, these weren't the same papers I'd been looking at before. They were different. I paused for a second, my mind starting to race. The names, the dates, even the notes I had written down earlier, none of it matched. Someone had swapped the files. I looked up at Bella, who stood there watching me like she knew exactly what was going on. That sinking feeling in my stomach told me she was starting to figure out what I was up to. Every thought in my head collided, trying to make sense of the puzzle Bella had managed to weave over my head. I was losing control. "You," I said, my voice thick with anger, pointing right into her face. "Where are my files?" Bella just stood there, calm, unmoved. It only made me angrier. "What do you mean? They're right in front of you." I watched her expression closely, searching for clues to what she might have figured out, but she was unreadable. It only made my heart race more. "Where are the files?" I asked, my voice suddenly sharp. She didn't answer right away, but I could see the recognition in her face. She'd figured it out. She must have. Still, I couldn't be sure, and I had already done enough to make myself seem like I was in opposition to the entire, any more slip-up or getting caught doing anything, and I'm done. You're not fooling me, Bella. I took a step forward. You think I don't know what you've been doing? What you've been hiding? Bella met my gaze, her calm demeanor never breaking. Not fooling you? You must be joking, Mabel. You think I don't know what you've been trying to do? No, I said, my voice steady as it could possibly be. I have no idea what you are talking about. Bella remained silent, watching me with that same detached look. Her eyes never left me. It was like she was waiting for me to crack, and I could feel the tension thickening in the air. I know what you're doing, she said, her voice quiet but sharp. You're lying. You've been lying ever since, about these files, about a lot of other things too, I'm sure. I froze, a chill running down my spine. What are you talking about? I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. Bella was too sure, too confident. You've been lying about Ollie's situation. You know something, and you think you're keeping your secret well. And now you're messing with the Pack's files, switching them around, like you're trying to hide something else. She continued, her voice rising just enough to make my heart race. I know what you're trying to do, but you're clearly trying to destroy something. The silence in the room was suffocating. My hands trembled as I clenched them into fists, trying to keep my emotions in check. But the sight of Bella standing there, so calm, so composed while everything inside me was unraveling, it was maddening. I want to see my son, I said, my voice a little too loud, a little too sharp. I couldn't help it. Bella gave me a pointed look, the kind that made my stomach churn. Why do you need to see him? You know where he is. You can see him later. No, I snapped, stepping forward. I want to see him now. I don't care what you say. I want to see my child. My voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. Bella didn't move, her eyes narrowing slightly. I've already told you, Mabel. I felt my pulse quicken. The words were like a slap to my face. She was trying to control me. And it seems like she currently had the upper hand. And where is Kai? I blurted out, the question leaving my lips before I could stop it. If you're going to keep me from my son, at least tell me where he is. I'm sure he would love to hear that you're trying to keep me from seeing my child. Bella didn't answer right away, her gaze hardening. Why do you care so much about Kai? You don't deserve to be in his presence after everything you've done. I gritted my teeth, holding back the anger bubbling inside me. I care because he is the father of child. You have to accept that because I know I'm not the one who's been lying to everyone, pretending to have everything under control. Bella's smile was cold. I know what you're doing. You're trying to tear everything apart, make everyone believe you're the one who's right. But it's over. You can't keep up with your lies anymore. I felt my heart race, my body shaking with the need to act. She had caught me. I could see it in her eyes already. Still, I couldn't back down, but what could I do? I could only salvage the rest of this. Even if he's not biologically mine, I still want to accept him, I said suddenly, the words tumbling out before I could think. I don't care about bloodlines. I just want him to be mine. Bella's eyes flickered, but she didn't show much emotion. She simply nodded, as if she had already predicted I'd say that. You're fooling yourself. You know that, don't you? I froze, my breath catching in my throat. What do you mean? She smirked, pulling out a folded piece of paper from her pocket and holding it up for me to see. It had a hospital emblem on it. I have the proof. Ollie isn't Kai's son. He's not even related to him. My heart dropped. The room felt like it was spinning, my vision going blurry. No, it couldn't be true. It just couldn't. No, I whispered, shaking my head, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. No, that's not possible. Bella's voice was calm, almost pitying. I knew you'd panic. That's why I waited till I was sure enough to do this. I felt my body shake, my legs weak beneath me. Where is Ollie? I whispered again, my voice barely audible. Tell me where he is. Bella didn't answer. Instead, she simply stared at me, her face expressionless. It was as if she was waiting for me to break. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm not leaving until I see him. Can you even identify your own pup by scent? Bella asked suddenly, her voice soft, but there was an edge to it that sent a chill down my spine. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" She shrugged, almost nonchalantly. "You should know. Werewolves can identify their pups by scent." She was mocking me at this point. "I know that's what you were trying to do, Mabel. You changed Ollie's scent to make him smell like he belongs to Kai. You probably did it in the same way you faked your own death. Didn't you?" My mind went blank. My heart pounded in my chest. Bella had figured it out. She knew exactly what I was doing. "You can't prove anything," I snapped, trying to regain some control. "You don't know anything." Bella's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "Oh, I know exactly what you're doing. You were hoping that no one would figure it out. But you made one mistake, Mabel." Before I could react, she stepped closer, her voice turning colder. "You'll never get away with this." I felt the blood rush to my head. Anger surged through me, a tidal wave of frustration and fear that exploded in an instant. I lunged at her, my hands reaching out, desperate to stop her from talking, from exposing everything. I had to make her stop. But as I reached her, a hand gripped my wrist tightly. I spun around, my heart nearly stopping when I saw Kai standing there, his expression unreadable. "Mabel," he said, his voice firm, "it's over." I pulled away from him, the anger still boiling inside me. "No," Kai didn't move, but his grip on me tightened. "Just give it up. I heard everything." I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream, but something inside me told me to stop. Bella had already won. Kai called out to the guards, his voice cold and commanding. "Take her to the dungeon, now." I felt a knot in my stomach as the guards stepped forward, grabbing my arms firmly. I tried to pull away, but they wouldn't let go. As they started to lead me down the dark hallway, I couldn't help but feel humiliated. The worst part? The Omega maid who was walking behind us was the same one I had almost sent to the dungeon earlier. And now, she was the one escorting me, as if I was the one who didn't belong. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. As I was dragged through the hallways, I saw Bella, standing there with Kai. The sight of them together filled me with fury, but there was nothing I could do other than accept defeat. Bella. The soft hum of chatter filled the grand hall as the party celebrated my ascension as Luna of the APAC kicked into full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow across the room, reflecting off the polished marble floors. Members of the New York Pack mingled with ours, laughing and toasting to new beginnings, but all I could think about was escaping the stifling crowd. I hadn't wanted a celebration, especially not one this lavish, but Kai insisted. "They need to see their Luna, Bella," he'd said, his piercing green eyes soft with determination. "They need to know you're here to stay." He wasn't wrong, but that didn't mean I had to enjoy it. The heavy weight of their scrutiny pressed down on me, some still unsure of me, others skeptical of what my leadership might bring. "Luna Bella," I turned at the cheerful voice to see one of the maids I'd helped earlier that week with Mabel. I was relieved that she was gone. I couldn't believe all she did. That woman was vicious. Her smile was wide and her eyes shimmered with gratitude. "Margot," I smiled back, stepping closer to her. "Enjoying the party?" "I am, Luna. I just wanted to thank you again." She glanced around nervously before leaning in to whisper. "You don't know how much it means to us. Standing up for me the way you did. After what Mabel..." She trailed off, her expression darkening. "You don't have to say it." I touched her arm gently. "Things are different now. No one in this pack will be mistreated again, not if I have anything to say about it." She nodded quickly, her eyes shining. "Kai's lucky to have you." "Lucky?" I raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Don't let him hear you say that. His ego doesn't need the boost." Margot laughed softly, her tension easing. "Thank you, Luna. Truly." She excused herself, leaving me standing by the refreshment table, a glass of champagne untouched in my hand. Kai appeared at my side then, as if summoned by the mere mention of his name. His tall frame towered over me, and his ever-present warmth settled like a comforting weight in my chest. "You're hiding," he said, his voice low and teasing. "I'm not hiding." I gave him a pointed look. "I'm observing." "Right." He chuckled, leaning closer. His scent, a mix of cedar and something distinctly him, was intoxicating. "You've been observing that same glass of champagne for 20 minutes. "It's too fancy." I wrinkled my nose. "You know I prefer beer." "Noted." He tilted his head, studying me in that intense way of his that always made my heart stutter. You were talking to Margot. I was. She likes you, he said softly, his tone shifting to something more serious. She should. I'm pretty likable. I shrugged, trying to keep things light, but he wasn't smiling anymore. Bella. His hand brushed mine, grounding me. Thank you for helping her. I never doubted you'd be an incredible Luna, but seeing it in action. He let the words hang between us, his expression full of something so raw it stole my breath. I cleared my throat, trying to deflect. I mean, someone had to step in after Mabel decided bullying maids was part of her job description. His jaw tightened at the mention of Mabel, his eyes darkening. She's gone now, locked away where she can't hurt anyone else. And I'm going to make sure this pack is better, stronger, fairer. No more discrimination, equal opportunities for everyone. I swear it. You're doing well already, I said, meaning it. They'll see that soon enough. He smiled then, a rare, soft thing that made my chest ache. Before I could say anything else, a group of betas approached us with grins and a tray of drinks. Luna, one of them called out, holding up a glass of something dark and ominous looking. A toast to the future. Kai's brow furrowed. Bella doesn't. Oh, relax, I cut him off, grabbing the glass with a grin. One drink won't kill me. Famous last words. I lost track of how many toasts there are. The room grew warmer, the laughter louder, and every drink seemed to flow faster than the last. At some point, I abandoned the champagne for something stronger, giggling as one of the betas attempted to teach me a ridiculous pack dance. Kai stayed close, watching me with a mix of amusement and exasperation. You're going to regret this in the morning, he murmured, when I nearly tripped over my own feet. Probably, I replied, not bothering to hide my grin. But right now, I feel great. By the time the night winds down, I'm thoroughly drunk and more than a little unsteady. Kai catches me as I sway, his strong hands gripping my arms to keep me upright. Time for bed, he says, his voice firm but gentle. Only if you carry me, I challenge, blinking up at him. His lips twitched, but he didn't argue. With an ease that made my head spin, he lifted me into his arms, cradling me against his chest. You're bossy when you're drunk, he said, his tone dry. And you're tall, I mumbled, resting my head against his shoulder. Really tall. It's annoying. He chuckled, the sound vibrating through me. You're ridiculous. Ridiculously cute, I correct, poking his chest. He didn't respond, but the corner of his mouth quirked upward as he carried me out of the hall and up the stairs to our room. The moment the door closed behind us, I kicked off my shoes, stumbling slightly as Kai steadied me. You're a mess, he says, shaking his head. Your mess, I shoot back, grinning. For a second, he just looks at me, his expression unreadable. Then he sighs, running a hand through his hair. You should sleep, Bella. Not tired. Liar. I stick out my tongue at him, but he didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he stepped closer, his hands resting on my arms as he studied my face. You're gonna hate me in the morning, he murmured, his voice soft. Doubt it, I replied, leaning into him. His eyes darkened, his grip tightening slightly. Bella. Whatever he was going to say was lost as I pulled him down, pressing my lips to his. For a moment he froze, but then his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer. The rest of the night was a blur of heat and sensation, of whispered words and unspoken promises. Bella. The hospital was quieter than usual, the faint hum of machines blending with the soft whispers of nurses drifting through the sterile halls. My steps echoed faintly as I made my way toward Ollie's room, clutching a small picture book I'd brought with me. 2 months had passed since Mabel's imprisonment, and though things were beginning to settle, my heart still ached every time I thought of Ollie and what he had endured. He was healing. I could see it in the way his shoulders didn't hunch quite so much anymore, in the way he tried to smile, even when the shadows of his pain lingered in his eyes. Stopping outside his door, I peered through the window. He was sitting up in bed, sunlight streaming through the curtains, casting him in a golden glow. The therapist beside him held a set of flashcards, her voice gentle as she encouraged him. Good, she said with a warm smile. Now try it again. Son. Ollie furrowed his brow, his lips moving silently as he worked to form the word. My heart clenched as he struggled, but then, finally, a faint whisper escaped. Son, he said, his voice hoarse but clear enough to make me smile. That's it. The therapist praised, her joy infectious. "You're doing so well, Ollie." I couldn't help myself. I stepped into the room, grinning like an idiot. "At this rate, you'll be giving me singing lessons soon." Ollie looked up at me, his eyes wide with surprise, and then slowly a shy smile crept onto his face. "Bella," he whispered, the sound fragile but unmistakably mine. I froze. It was the first time I'd heard him say my name. My throat tightened, and I blinked back the tears threatening to spill. "You've been practicing," I said, keeping my voice light as I moved closer and sat beside him. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair off his forehead. He nodded, glancing at the therapist. "She helps." "She's doing an incredible job," I agreed, smiling gratefully at the woman. The therapist stood then, gathering her materials. "I think we'll stop here for today. He's made excellent progress, but he needs rest." "Thank you," I said as she left, closing the door softly behind her. Turning back to Ollie, I took his small hand in mine. "How are you feeling?" He hesitated for a moment, his fingers fidgeting with the blanket draped over his lap. "Good, I think," he said slowly, his voice halting as he carefully pieced together the words. "That's a big improvement from the last time I asked you," I teased, hoping to make him smile again. It worked. He laughed softly, a sound that filled the room like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "It feels weird," he admitted. Talking again, I squeezed his hand. "You're doing amazing, Ollie. I'm so proud of you." His smile faltered then, and something darker flickered in his eyes. "Bella," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Yes, sweetheart." I leaned in closer, my heart already bracing for whatever he was about to say. "Can I tell you something?" My stomach tightened, but I nodded, keeping my expression calm. "Of course, you can tell me anything." He took a shaky breath, and when he spoke, his words were slow and deliberate, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. "My parents, they were good people, kind. They loved me even though they were Omegas. I know they did," I said gently. "I wasn't supposed to leave the house," he continued, his voice trembling, "but I wanted to explore. I met her, Mabel." His voice cracked on her name, and my chest tightened with a surge of anger and sorrow. "She was nice at first," he said, his gaze growing distant. "She gave me sweets, told me stories. I thought she was my friend." My heart ached as I listened, his pain filling the room like a heavy fog. "It wasn't your fault, Ollie," I whispered. "I didn't know," he said, shaking his head. "I didn't know she liked me because I looked like Kai." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Of course, his resemblance to Kai must have twisted Mabel's obsession into something even darker. "She said I could help her," he said, his voice barely audible now. "She made me steal from my parents. I didn't want to, but she said she'd hurt them if I didn't. She lied. She hurt them anyway. She took everything from them. A sob escaped him then, and I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly as his small body shook against mine. "I'm so sorry, Ollie," I said, my voice breaking. "You didn't deserve any of this." "She changed my scent," he whispered into my shoulder, "and my voice. She said if I ever told the truth, the curse would." He trailed off, and I didn't need him to finish. "Mabel can't hurt you anymore," I said firmly, pulling back to look him in the eyes. "You're safe now. I promise." "I can feel the curse lifting," he said gently. He searched my face for a moment as if testing the truth of my words, before nodding slowly. Later that afternoon, I took Ollie outside to the hospital's garden. The fresh air and golden sunlight seemed to lift his spirits, and for the first time in weeks, he laughed freely as we walked along the flower-lined paths. "Look at those roses," I said, pointing to a vibrant bush. "They're as red as your cheeks when you're embarrassed." Ollie giggled, shaking his head. "They don't blush." "No, but you do," I teased, nudging him gently. We found a bench near a small fountain, the sound of trickling water filling the comfortable silence between us. I pulled out the picture book I'd brought, flipping it open to a page with simple illustrations. "All right," I said, pointing to a picture of a cat. "What's this?" "Cat," he said, his voice still raspy but stronger than it had been that morning. "Good, and this one?" I pointed to a dog. "Dog," he replied, pride shining in his eyes. We went through several more pictures, his confidence growing with each word. By the time we reached the last page, I closed the book and smiled. The sun warmed the garden, the golden light dancing across the flowers and casting soft shadows on the fountain. I watched as Ollie crouched beside a patch of daisies, his small fingers brushing the petals with a gentleness that made my heart ache. It was a rare moment of peace for him, and I didn't have the heart to interrupt. "Did you know," I said, leaning back on the bench, "that daisies mean innocence?" Ollie looked over his shoulder at me, tilting his head slightly. "They do?" His voice was still soft, fragile, but the fact that he was using it at all made me smile. "They do," I said, nodding. "They're like little reminders that no matter what happens, there's still goodness in the world." He stared at the flowers a moment longer before standing and brushing the dirt off his knees. "I like that," he said quietly, walking back to sit beside me. I handed him the picture book again, but this time, instead of going through the words, I flipped to a blank page in the back. "Want to draw?" I asked, pulling a small pencil from my bag. His eyes lit up, and he nodded eagerly. "Yes!" I couldn't help but laugh as he immediately leaned over the page, his tongue sticking out in concentration. He sketched a lopsided sun, a few flowers, and what looked like a little house. It was rough, shaky, but the joy on his face was undeniable. "You've got some real talent," I teased, pointing to the sun. "That's a masterpiece right there." Ollie giggled, his cheeks turning pink. "You're just saying that." "Maybe," I admitted, grinning. "But I mean it too." "What's that?" I pointed to a small figure he'd added next to the house. He hesitated, chewing on his lip as he stared at the drawing. "It's you," he said after a moment. "Me?" I tried to keep my voice light, though his answer made my chest tighten. He nodded, his gaze flicking to me. "You make me feel safe, like home." I didn't know what to say to that. The lump in my throat made speaking impossible, so I just reached out and ruffled his hair. "You're too sweet for your own good, you know that?" He beamed up at me, his smile so genuine it almost broke me. How could someone so small, so hurt, still have so much light inside him? "Let's play a game," I said suddenly, standing up and holding out my hand. "Tag. I'll give you a head start." His eyes widened, and without a word he bolted across the garden, his laughter trailing behind him. For the next few minutes, we chased each other around the fountain and through the flower beds. His laughter filled the air, and for once, he wasn't a boy burdened by pain. He was just a kid, running free under the sun. When we finally collapsed back onto the bench, both of us breathless and smiling, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Ollie deserved so much more than this fleeting moment of happiness. I reached out and pulled him into a side hug, resting my chin on his messy hair. "You're gonna be okay, Ollie," I murmured, more to myself than to him. "I promise." "You're incredible, Ollie," I said softly. He looked up at me, his expression serious. "Bella?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I call you Mom?" My heart stopped, the weight of his words settling over me like a warm blanket. Tears filled my eyes, and I reached out to cup his cheek. "You can call me whatever you want," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He threw his arms around me then, hugging me tightly. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice trembling but sure. I held him close, letting my tears fall as I whispered, "I love you, Ollie, so much." As I descended into the dungeon, the air grew thick with the stench of mold and decay. The walls, crafted from cold, gray stone, seemed to absorb the faint light that flickered from the torches, casting long, ominous shadows on the ground. The only sound was the soft clanking of chains and the muted whispers of the prisoners, their voices barely audible over the creaking of the old wooden beams. The wolves who guarded the dungeon bowed their heads in respect as I passed, their eyes cast downward in submission. I was their alpha, and they knew better than to meet my gaze without permission. The human guards, too, nodded deferentially, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords as they stood at attention. The darkness of the dungeon seemed to press in around me, a physical presence that weighed heavily on my shoulders. I could feel the weight of the pack's justice in this place, the knowledge that those who had betrayed us were paying for their crimes. As I turned a corner, the sound of scurrying rodents and the creaking of rusty hinges filled the air. We were approaching Mabel's cell. I steeled myself for what I was about to see, my heart hardened against any feelings of compassion. The guard stopped in front of a heavy iron door, adorned with intricate locks and reinforced with thick steel bars. He produced a large key and unlocked the door, pushing it open with a loud creak. I stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light within. Mabel sat on a narrow pallet, her back against the cold stone wall. She looked different. Gone was the polished, poised woman I had once known. In her place was a gaunt, hollow-eyed shadow, her skin pale and clammy in the faint light. For a moment, I simply stared at her, taking in the transformation. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and for an instant I thought I saw a flicker of defiance. But it was quickly extinguished, replaced by a dull resignation. I felt no pity for her, no compassion. She had brought this fate upon herself, and now she would have to face the consequences. And like someone who's lost their mental balance, she suddenly burst out laughing, her head killing back as she did. I was unmoved. "Oh, Kai," she drawled my name, her gaze piercing through mine. "What brings you to my humble abode?" The sarcasm in her voice wasn't missed, her head bobbing to the side slightly. "Did you miss me already?" she asked, and when she got no response from me, she burst into another round of laughter. The sound was like nails on a chalkboard, grating and harsh. I didn't have time for her games, so I cut straight to the point. "What do you know about the witch's hideout?" I asked, my voice firm. Mabel's laughter faltered, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something else in her eyes. But then her mask slipped back into place, and she smiled again. "Oh, Kai, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. I raised an eyebrow. "Don't play dumb, Isabella. I know you were involved with the witches. Tell me where they're hiding." She shrugged, a careless gesture. "I'm afraid I don't know anything about any witches, and even if I did, why would I tell you?" My patience was wearing thin. I took a step closer to her, my eyes locked on hers. "Mabel, I don't have time for this. Tell me what I want to know, or things will get unpleasant." For a moment, I thought I saw a flash of fear in her eyes, but then her expression hardened, and she smiled again. "Fine," she said, her voice sulky. "If I knew anything, which I don't, I might say that there's a house in the woods, a big old house with a crooked roof and a garden full of wildflowers." I studied her face, searching for any sign of deception, but Mabel's expression seemed genuine, if a bit sulky. I nodded, my mind already turning over the information. "I see," I said. "And can you tell me exactly where this house is?" Mabel shrugged again. "I'm afraid I don't know the exact location. I'm not exactly familiar with the woods, you know." I watched her for a moment, trying to read between the lines. But Mabel's expression was a mask, and I couldn't see anything behind it. I turned to leave, but Mabel's voice stopped me. "Kai," she called out, her voice soft and husky. I turned back to her, my eyebrows raised in inquiry. Her smile was a thin, cruel line. "Be careful, Kai. The woods can be treacherous." I felt a flicker of unease, but I pushed it aside. I wasn't afraid of the woods, and I wasn't afraid of Mabel or the witches. "I can take care of myself, Mabel," I said, my voice firm. "Don't worry about me." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Mabel to her thoughts. But as I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still hiding something from me. Something important. I walked swiftly through the corridors, my mind already turning over the information Mabel had provided. I needed to verify her claims, and that meant sending a team to investigate the woods. As I turned a corner, I spotted one of my guards, Riker, standing at attention. "Riker," I called out, and he immediately fell into step beside me. "Alpha?" he asked, his eyes questioning. "Gather a team of soldiers," I instructed him. "We're going to the woods to investigate a possible lead on the witches." Riker's expression turned serious. "Yes, Alpha, right away." I nodded, my mind already racing ahead to the potential dangers that lay ahead. The witches were not to be underestimated, and I wouldn't take any risks. "Make sure the team is armed and prepared for anything," I added, my voice firm. "We don't know what we'll be walking into." Riker nodded, his face set in a determined expression. "I'll see to it, Alpha." Within minutes, Riker returned with a team of heavily armed soldiers, and of course Liam, my beta. I nodded, satisfied, and turned to lead the way out of the castle and into the woods. As we approached the house, I could feel a sense of unease settling over me. The trees seemed to loom closer, casting long, ominous shadows on the ground. I pushed open the creaky front door, my eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. The living room was a large open space with couches arranged in a circle around a low table, but it was what lay on the couches that caught my attention. The witches, all of them, lay motionless, their skin a sickly blue hue. Riker and Liam exchanged a worried glance. "Alpha, what's going on here?" Riker asked, his voice low. I knelt beside one of the witches, feeling for a pulse. It was weak, but present. I spotted a cup of tea on the table, a silver needle lying beside it. I picked up the needle and plunged it into the tea. The needle began to change color, turning a deep purple. I showed it to Liam, who frowned. "Poison," he said, his voice grim. I nodded, my mind racing. This was no accident. Someone had deliberately poisoned the witches. Liam carefully picked up one of the teacups, emptying its contents onto the floor. As he did, a small totem became visible at the bottom of the cup. It was a tiny, delicate thing, carved from a piece of dark wood. The totem depicted a serpent coiled around a staff, its body intricately detailed with tiny scales and ridges. The staff itself was adorned with tiny, glowing runes that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Liam's eyes met mine, a hint of suspicion in their depths. "This looks like an inside job, Alpha," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I took the cup from Liam, my eyes fixed on the totem as I turned it over in my hand. The serpent's scales seemed to shimmer in the dim light, and the runes on the staff pulsed with an otherworldly energy. As I studied the totem, an image flashed across my mind. I remembered seeing something very similar, a tattoo on Mabel's arm. I recalled the way the serpent's body had wrapped around her bicep, the way the runes had seemed to dance across her skin. My mind racing, I looked up at Liam. "I've seen this symbol before," I said, my voice low. "On Mabel's arm. It was a tattoo." Liam's eyes narrowed. "That's not good," he said. "This means Mabel has been involved with the witches for a very long time now. The pack could be in." I didn't need him to finish the sentence. I already knew where this was headed. Mabel's betrayal cut deep, but I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. Not now, when the stakes were higher than ever. I turned to Liam and Riker, my mind racing with the implications of Mabel's involvement with the witches. "Let's head back," I instructed them. "We need to get to the bottom of this." As we walked, I fell back to speak with Riker. "I need you to send a message to Alpha Luthor," I said, my voice low. "Inform him that the witches are back, and that we need to work together to keep our packs safe." Riker nodded, his expression serious. "I'll see to it, Alpha." I watched as Riker peeled off to deliver the message, my mind turning to Bella. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me. Bella was strong and capable, but the witches were a formidable foe. And with Mabel, I couldn't be sure who we could trust. I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. But the image of Bella's smiling face lingered in my mind, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of worry for her safety. "Bella." As soon as I heard the door open, I rushed to Kai's side, embracing him warmly. "I was starting to get worried," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Kai smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners, but I could still see the worry etched on his face. I knew that look all too well. "Hey," he said, his voice low as he wrapped his arms around me. I leaned in, our lips meeting in a soft, gentle kiss. But as we kissed, I felt a distance between us, a sense of withdrawal that I couldn't quite explain. It was as if Kai was holding back, his emotions locked away behind a mask of calm. I deepened the kiss, trying to bridge the gap between us, but it only seemed to grow wider. Kai's responses were mechanical, his touch lacking the usual spark of passion. I pulled back, searching his face for answers. "What's wrong, Kai?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kai's hand enveloped mine, warm and reassuring, as we sat together on the bed. He took a deep breath, his eyes locked on mine, and began to tell me about his encounter with Mabel. "I went to see her in the dungeon," he said, his voice low and even. "She's been working with the witches, Bella. I'm not sure what her endgame is, but I know it can't be good." I listened, my heart sinking as Kai told me about their conversation. Mabel's involvement with the witches was a nightmare come true. Kai's expression turned grim as he continued. "We also found something in the woods, a house filled with witches. They'd been poisoned, Bella. Someone had given them tea with poison in it." My mind was racing, my emotions in turmoil. This was getting worse by the minute. Kai's eyes locked on mine, his expression intense. "We found a totem, a small wooden carving of a serpent. Coiled around a staff," I finished, my voice barely above a whisper. Kai's eyes narrowed, surprise flickering across his face. "How did you know that?" he asked, his tone low and cautious. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized I had revealed something I shouldn't have known. But I pressed on, the words tumbling out of my mouth. "With runes that pulse with a malevolent energy," I added, my voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside me. Kai's expression turned stunned, his eyes searching mine for answers. "Bella, how do you know all of this?" he asked, his voice laced with a mix of concern and curiosity. The memories came flooding back. I was 5 years old, playing in the sandbox in our backyard. The sun was shining, casting a warm glow over everything. I was building a castle, carefully constructing the moat and towers. My blonde pigtails were tied up with pink ribbons, and I was wearing my favorite yellow sundress. As I worked on my castle, I noticed a man and a woman standing by the fence that surrounded our yard. They were watching me, their faces serious. The man was tall and thin, with a scruffy beard and a black leather jacket. The woman was shorter, with long, curly brown hair and a white sundress. They both had the same tattoo on their arms, a serpent coiled around a staff. At first I thought they were friends of my parents, but as they approached me, I felt a sense of unease. They didn't smile or say hello. Instead, they walked quickly towards me, their eyes fixed on me. The man reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the sandbox. I tried to struggle, but he was too strong. The woman helped him, lifting me up and carrying me towards the fence. I kicked and screamed, trying to get away, but they held me tight. My parents were nowhere to be seen. I was all alone, at the mercy of these two strangers. As we reached the fence, the man lifted me up and handed me over to the woman, who was standing on the other side. She carried me away from my home, away from my parents and everything I knew. I looked back, seeing my backyard grow smaller and smaller as we walked away. I screamed and cried, but no one came to help me. The woman carried me for a long time until we reached a car. She put me in the back seat, and the man drove us away. I was trapped, alone and scared, with no idea where we were going or what would happen to me. As we drove, the woman turned around and smiled at me. But it wasn't a nice smile. It was a cold, calculating smile. And on her arm, I had seen the tattoo for the first time, the serpent coiled around the staff. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that I was in grave danger. "Dang," Kai mutters under his breath. "This is so much deeper than I would have imagined." I think the witches have been around for a lot longer than we thought. We just haven't noticed." I felt a chill run down my spine. And that's what scares me, Kai. We have no idea how much danger we're in. We don't know who's a witch and who's not. We don't know if they have insiders, people working for them within our own ranks. Kai's eyes narrowed. "We'll investigate, Bella. We'll get to the bottom of this." But I knew I had to be involved. I had to know what was going on. "I want to be part of the investigation, Kai." Kai's expression turned stern. "No, Bella. It's too dangerous." But I was adamant. "I don't care, Kai. I'm going to find out what's going on, with or without your help." Kai's eyes flashed with frustration, but I could see the resignation in his expression. "Fine, Bella. You can be part of the investigation, but you have to promise me one thing. You have to stay safe." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I promise, Kai. I'll do whatever it takes to stay safe and to help us uncover the truth." I turned to Kai, determination in my voice. "We need to go back to the dungeon and interrogate Mabel again." Kai nodded, his expression grim. "Let's go." As we made our way to the dungeon, I could feel the tension building inside me. What would we find? Would Mabel reveal more secrets? We reached the dungeon, but as we entered, we were met with an eerie silence. The guards were slumped against the walls, unconscious. "Mabel's gone," Kai growled, his eyes scanning the empty cells. I felt a chill run down my spine as I took in the sight before us. The walls of the dungeon were lined with totems, the same symbol we'd found earlier. Kai's face was twisted in anger, his fists clenched. I could see the tension radiating from him, and I knew he was on the verge of losing control. "This isn't good," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Kai stormed out of the dungeon, and I followed close behind. We emerged into the bright sunlight, and Kai summoned Liam, his voice low and urgent. "We need to investigate everything now," Kai demanded. "I want to know who's behind this, and I want to news ASAP." Liam nodded, his expression serious. "I'll get the team on it, Kai." As Liam hurried off, Kai turned to me, his eyes still blazing with anger. "We're in this together, Bella. We'll get to the bottom of this, no matter what it takes." As we stood there, the tension between us dissipated, and Kai's expression turned serious again. "Hey, how's Ollie doing?" he asked. My heart skipped a beat as I hesitated, unsure of how to answer, but then I took a deep breath and approached the subject calmly. "Kai, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What is it?" I looked up at him, my eyes searching his. "Are you ready to have a kid?" Kai's expression changed, surprise written across his face. "What do you mean?" "Bella." I watched as the look of confusion on Kai's face, his brows furrowed, his lips in a thin line, his head slightly bobbed to the side, transformed into one of pure joy. He was grinning from ear to ear, his brows now raised in excitement. "Are you pregnant?" he asked, taking a step towards me, excitement radiating off him in waves. It made my stomach dance with butterflies. But I wasn't pregnant. I blinked. "Not literally pregnant? Metaphorically? Spiritually?" "Bella," he said sharply, leaning forward, his amber eyes boring into mine. The look of confusion was back. "This is not something you joke about." "I'm not joking," I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "I mean, I've been thinking about adopting Ollie." Kai froze. His expression shifted from confusion to something softer, more contemplative. "Adopting Ollie?" "Yes." My voice steadied as I explained. "He needs us, Kai. He's been through so much. No pack, no family, no one to show him he's worth something. We can give him that. A home, a place where he belongs." Nathaniel's knife clattered to the counter, forgotten. He walked around the island and took my hands in his warmth anchoring me. "Bella, I had no idea you were thinking about this, about him." "Of course I was. How could I not?" My voice cracked as I continued. "He's just a kid, Kai, and Mabel." His jaw clenched at her name, guilt flashing in his eyes. "She hurt him." "She hurt everyone," I said gently, squeezing his hands. "But we have a chance to undo some of that, to make something good out of all the damage she left behind." For a moment he said nothing, his thumb brushing over the back of my hand. Then he nodded, his voice firm. "You're right. Let's do it. Let's make him part of the family." I blinked back tears. "Really? Really?" That's how. The next day we stood under the pale winter sun, Ollie between us as we performed the ancient blood ritual to bind him to the APAC. His small hands trembled as he held mine and Kai's, but his tears weren't from fear. "Mom, Dad," his voice broke as he looked up at us, his eyes shining with emotion. I bent down to kiss his forehead. "We're here, Ollie. Always." Kai ruffled his hair, his rare smile softening his sharp features. "You're stuck with us now, kid." To celebrate, we decided to give Ollie something he'd never had, a real childhood memory. The late afternoon sun cast everything in a warm, golden light as we strolled through the amusement park. The air smelled like funnel cakes and popcorn, and the sound of laughter and excited screams from nearby rides was like a soundtrack to the day. Kai walked to my left, his hands in his pockets, while Ollie was already scouting out his next challenge. "This is it," Ollie said, stopping abruptly in front of a booth lined with flashing lights and an impressive display of prizes. The biggest one, an oversized pink unicorn, hung prominently at the top, taunting everyone who dared try. The game was simple. Knock over a pyramid of cans with 3 baseballs. Kai tilted his head, skeptical. "This is a scam. Look how heavy those cans probably are." "Don't wimp out, Kai," I teased, bumping his shoulder. He rolled his eyes, but I caught the faintest hint of a smirk. "All right, big talker, you go first," Ollie said, gesturing dramatically to the booth. "Gladly." I stepped forward and grabbed one of the baseballs. It was lighter than I expected, and I weighed it in my hand. The cans gleamed in the fading sunlight, daring me to try. With a confident grin, I lined up my shot and hurled the ball. It sailed past the pyramid entirely, missing every single can. Ollie burst out laughing so hard he had to hold on to the counter for support. Kai didn't laugh, but the way he raised his eyebrows was more than enough. Okay, I said, trying to fight back my own laughter. "That was just a warm-up." "Yeah, sure it was," Ollie said between gasps. "You've got 2 more tries, champ." I glared at him playfully and grabbed another ball, focusing this time. My second throw hit the edge of the bottom can, making the entire pyramid wobble but stay standing. "That was close," Kai said, leaning on the counter beside me. Almost impressed. Shut up, I muttered, determined now. For the third throw, I took my time, lining up the shot carefully. The ball struck dead center, sending the cans flying everywhere. Yes, I threw my hands in the air as the booth attendant clapped politely. Who's laughing now? Ollie looked genuinely shocked. Beginner's luck. Sure, whatever helps you sleep at night. I glanced at Kai, who was grinning, and then back at the attendant. I'll take the pink unicorn, please. The unicorn was massive, and I struggled to carry it as we moved on. Ollie offered to hold it for me, but I noticed Kai watching, his gaze flickering between me and the prize. We wandered until we found the roller coaster, its metal frame towering above us like some kind of monstrous beast. Its cars screamed past at breakneck speed, leaving behind a trail of wind and delighted shrieks. This is it, Ollie said, practically vibrating with excitement. The grand finale of the day. Kai glanced at the ride, then at me. You okay with this? It's not too late to back out. I smirked. You wish. I'm not scared. He gave a mock bow. Lead the way, then. The line wasn't too long, but the wait felt eternal as I listened to the coaster rattle overhead. By the time we reached the front, my heart was racing. Kai ended up sitting next to me, with Ollie taking the seat behind us. The harness locked into place with a heavy clunk, and I couldn't help but grip the handles tightly. Regretting this yet? Kai asked, his voice low and teasing. Not a chance, I shot back, though my hands said otherwise. The ride started with a slow climb, the clicking of the chain pulling us higher and higher. Below us, the entire park stretched out like a toy set, the lights blinking against the deepening twilight. The higher we went, the quieter it got, until it was just the sound of the wind and my own heartbeat. I glanced at Kai. He was looking straight ahead, his profile calm and steady against the sky. Then he turned to me, his expression softening. You're not scared at all, are you? He asked, his voice barely audible over the wind. Not even a little, I lied, but my breath hitched as we reached the peak. The coaster paused for a moment, the world hanging still. And then Kai leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a fleeting, electrifying kiss just as the ride plunged. The wind stole the breath from my lungs, but I wasn't sure if it was the drop or the kiss. My heart was racing for a completely different reason now, and when I looked at him again, his grin was wider than I'd ever seen it. Not scared, huh? He said, laughter in his voice. Shut up, I managed, my face burning as the coaster whipped us around loops and sharp turns. When we stumbled off the ride, Ollie was already halfway through a retelling of how he definitely wasn't screaming back there. I tried to keep up, clutching the unicorn and avoiding Kai's gaze, but I could feel his eyes on me, warm and steady. By the time we reached the next booth, I realized my cheeks were still flushed, and it had nothing to do with the roller coaster. We wandered through the park, trying everything from cotton candy to corn dogs. Kai surprised us both by winning Ollie a stuffed wolf at one of the carnival games. See? He said, handing the toy to Ollie. Charming and talented. You forgot humble, I teased. That too, he said with a wink. As the sun set, the park lit up with twinkling lights, transforming into something almost magical. Ollie's eyes sparkled as he watched a parade of performers pass by, their costumes glittering under the lights. This is the best day ever, he said, clutching his stuffed wolf tightly. Kai and I shared a look, our unspoken agreement clear. We'd do whatever it took to make sure Ollie always felt this way. But as we left the park, our happiness was short-lived. A group of teenagers whispered and pointed at us, their phones out. By the time we got home, the photos were already online. The comments were cruel. Who do they think they are? Typical attention seekers. That poor kid doesn't know what he's getting into. Especially the woman. She's such a slut. How can there be someone so cruel, so terrible? She deserves to die. Look at her. So ugly, so evil-looking. She's a witch. I wonder what the man sees in someone as ill-bred as her. I slammed my laptop shut, my chest tight with anger. Kai placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Ignore them. They don't matter. I looked at him, my voice trembling. But Ollie? We'll protect him, Kai said firmly, no matter what. When Ollie wandered into the room, his new stuffed wolf in hand, he tilted his head in confusion. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart, I said, pulling him into a hug. We were just talking about how lucky we are to have you. He smiled, his innocence a balm to my frayed nerves. I'm the lucky one. As he curled up on the couch between us, I realized that no amount of online hate could overshadow the love we'd built together. We were a family, and nothing could break that. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the old floorboards. I sat alone at the dining table, the dim glow of my phone casting long shadows on the walls. My tea sat untouched, its surface rippling slightly each time I exhaled sharply. My eyes, however, were glued to the screen, scanning the images over and over again. Bella's family photos. Kai was smiling, a rare, genuine smile that once used to belong to me. His arm was slung around that woman's shoulders, his eyes crinkling in a way that betrayed how deeply he was invested in them. And there, nestled between them, was her son. A child that wasn't even his, yet he held the boy like he was his own blood. My hands tightened around the phone. How could he? I zoomed in on Bella's face, trying to find something, anything, that would explain what Kai saw in her. Her long dark hair framed a face that was soft and warm. Her smile was open, almost too perfect, and the way her eyes crinkled made her look annoyingly authentic. The worst part? She looked happy. All of them did. The pain that stabbed through my chest was unbearable. I slammed the phone down on the table and pushed back my chair, pacing the room to keep my mind from spiraling. How dare they? I muttered to myself, the words a bitter hiss. How dare they just move on like that, after everything they put me through? I stopped in front of the window, staring out into the cold, gray evening. My reflection stared back, pale and gaunt, with shadows under my eyes that hadn't gone away in months. I didn't recognize myself anymore. Maybe I hadn't since. I closed my eyes, the memory crashing over me, the tiny room, the sterile smell, the sound of my own sobs echoing in my ears as the doctor explained, in clinical terms, that my baby was gone. My baby. My hand went to my stomach instinctively, even though there was nothing left to protect. The emptiness there was a void that no amount of time or distraction could fill. Max had been there at first. He'd held me, whispered reassurances, promised we'd get through it together. But he hadn't meant it. I knew that now. His promises had been as hollow as the man himself, a crutch he'd offered while quietly planning his escape. And when Alpha Luther's deal fell through, when Max's failure became undeniable, he hadn't just left me, he'd left us. I sank into the armchair by the window, my arms wrapping around myself. He replaced me, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Replaced us. I was just a means to an end. I wasn't worth it for him unless I had something to offer. So what did Bella have to offer to Kai? Isn't that what all men wanted? A tool? The thought of Bella, this woman who had somehow stolen everything from me, filled me with a rage so intense I felt sick. I couldn't just sit here and watch her live the life I was supposed to have. She didn't deserve it. She was nobody. I grabbed my phone again, my fingers trembling as I opened social media. It didn't take long to find her profile. Of course, it was public. She probably wanted the attention. Her posts were full of comments from her little fans, people praising her for her strength and grace. I scrolled through pictures of her and Nathaniel, her and the boy, and each one felt like a punch to the gut. But then I stopped. I stared at the post button, my thumb hovering over it. A wicked idea began to form in my mind, one that made my lips curl into a smile for the first time in days. What if? I murmured, tilting my head as the plan solidified. I started typing. The words came easily, fueled by months of anger and grief. This is the truth about Bella, the so-called saint everyone loves. She's nothing more than an uncultured rural woman who seduced Kai in the city, stealing him from his real family. She framed his ex-wife, me, to make herself look good, and now she's raising someone else's child like it's hers. Disgusting. I hesitated for only a moment before adding, women like her are why families fall apart. Spread the word. People should know the kind of person she really is. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. The response was immediate. Comments began pouring in within minutes, validating every bitter thought I'd ever had about her. She looks so fake in all her photos. Totally agree. Poor Kai, men always fall for manipulators like her. She doesn't even belong in the city. You can tell she's out of place. What a homewrecker. Gross. I read each one, a dark sense of satisfaction blooming in my chest. This was what she deserved. Let her smile through this. Let her see how quickly people turn on you when they know the truth. And yet, beneath the triumph, a whisper of doubt crept in. It sounded like the Stella I used to be, before everything fell apart. "Is this who you've become?" it asked. "Is this what you want?" I shoved the thought aside, scrolling through the comments for more fuel. One particularly nasty one caught my eye, and I couldn't help but laugh aloud. She probably trapped him by pretending to be innocent, typical small-town trash. It wasn't long before the post began to go viral. Shares, likes, more comments, it spread like wildfire. Every insult, every jab felt like a small victory in my personal war against her. But as the hours dragged on, the satisfaction began to dull, replaced by something else, something I couldn't quite name. My heart still ached, and no amount of venom spat online seemed to dull the emptiness inside me. I stared out the window again, the world outside dark now, the reflection in the glass even more unfamiliar. "Maybe this is all I have left," I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. Maybe revenge is the only thing that makes sense anymore. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. Bella. The sun had barely risen over the horizon, but the online world was already buzzing with activity. I woke up to the sound of my phone blowing up with notifications. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and reached for my phone, scrolling through the trending topics on social media. My heart sank as I saw my name plastered all over the internet, accompanied by hashtags like Bella the Scammer and Kai Deserves Better. It seemed that the online rumors about me had reached a fever pitch overnight, with many people calling me out for allegedly being a hypocrite and a scammer. I took a deep breath and tried to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach. I knew that I had done nothing wrong, but the constant barrage of negative comments and messages was starting to take its toll on me. I decided to put on a brave face and face the day head on, knowing that I had Kai and our son Ollie to support me through this difficult time. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. Who could hate me so much to the point of spreading vile things against me? My mind raced as I sat upright, slowly getting down from the bed so as to not wake Kai up. I knew he was worried about me and the whole online thing going on, and even though I had assured him that it didn't bother me, I still needed to put an end to it. I walked towards Ollie's room, wondering how my little boy was doing. As I entered, Ollie looked at me with concern in his eyes. "Mom, good morning," he greeted me, his voice a bit husky from sleep. I shifted towards the bed and sat. I pulled him towards me and sighed. "Morning, baby. How was your night?" I asked him as I ruffled his hair. "It was good," he replied and looked up at me. "Mom, I hope you're okay," he said, his voice trembling. "Whatever is worrying you, it will stop, and you won't be worried anymore." I fought back tears, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Oh my God, thank you so much, my love," I whispered, trying to hold back my emotions. "I love you so much." Ollie smiled, and I could see the worry in his eyes start to fade. "I love you more," he said, and I nodded through my now blurry eyes. I headed downstairs to prepare breakfast, trying to compose myself. Kai woke up and came into the kitchen. "Hey baby, good morning," he greeted me as he walked towards me and wrapped his hands around my waist and squeezed it gently. "Hi. Good morning? Did you sleep okay?" I asked him as I craned my neck a bit to allow him access to plant a kiss. He grunted, replying, "It was good. Yours?" I nodded absent-mindedly and sighed. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I don't want you to think too much about what's going on." I shook my head, trying to reassure him. "No, I'm fine." We all sat down to eat together. The atmosphere was lively, with Ollie saying something funny that made us all laugh. For a moment, I forgot all my problems. Kai got up and said he was going to take Ollie to the play pack, and he was also going to the pack to oversee some stuff. I decided to do some research to uncover the source of the rumors. My computer skills came in handy as I dug deeper. I searched and searched until I stumbled upon a profile and decided to click it. The profile screamed familiarity, and I had an iking that it was the culprit. Finally, I found what I was looking for. The person behind the rumors was Layla. "I knew it," I said to myself, my mind racing with thoughts. I needed to tell Kai, but then I decided to wait until he got back. Just then my phone buzzed. I checked it and saw that I was trending again. But this time, People were coming out in support of me and calling Layla a liar. I scrolled through the posts and saw that my brothers, Lennon, Xavier, Hunter, and Ralph, had come out, telling the public off and revealing to them that I'm their sister. Hunter had even posted a painting of the kiss I shared with Kai on our wedding. As I scrolled through the post, I saw that my brothers had also shared a screenshot of the messages Layla had sent them, trying to get them to turn against me. But my brothers had seen right through her and had instead decided to support me. I felt a surge of gratitude towards them. They had always been there for me, and I was lucky to have them as my brothers. I continued to scroll through the post, and I saw a video of my father, Alpha Luther, trending, a video of him saying that I was back and that I'm his daughter. As tears filled my eyes, I scrolled through the comments. People were against Layla and how she lied that she was the daughter of the Alpha. Just then, I heard the door open, and Kai walked in with Ollie. "Hey, how's it going?" he asked, giving me a kiss on the cheek. I smiled, feeling happy and relieved. "It's going great," I said. "I've been reading all the posts on social media, and it's amazing to see all the support we are getting." Kai smiled, sitting down next to me. "I know, I've been seeing it too," he said, still smiling. We sat there for a moment, reading through the posts together. Then Kai turned to me and said, "You know, I'm really proud of you. You've been through so much, but you're still standing strong." We sat there for a moment, holding hands and reading through the posts. It was a moment of peace, a moment of happiness. But as we sat there, I couldn't help but think about Layla. I wondered what she was thinking, how she was feeling. Was she regretful? Was she angry? I didn't know, and I didn't care. All I knew was that I was happy, and that I had the support of my loved ones. As the day went on, the posts continued to roll in. People were still talking about us, still supporting us. It was amazing to see. Eventually, Kai got up and said, "You know, I think we should do something to celebrate. How about we order some pizza and watch a movie?" I smiled, feeling happy. "That sounds like a great idea," I said. So we ordered some pizza and sat down to watch a movie. Ollie was happy, laughing and joking together. Kai and I were happy, holding hands and enjoying each other's company. It was a perfect evening, a perfect day. And as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for my family, grateful for my friends, grateful for the support of strangers. I knew that there would be tough times ahead, but I also knew that I could face them. I had the love and support of my family, and that was all that mattered.